Welcome back to the third episode of my graduation project documenting the life of my uncle, Joe Pierce. In the last episode, we talked about what Joe was doing during his time in the Navy during World War II. He experienced the war in both Europe and Asia while aboard the battleship Wasp. I highly suggest going and watching that video, and then coming back and watching this one. In this episode, we are going to talk about what Joe did after he left the Navy, using some interviews with family, and using historical events to describe what he would have been doing. According to an interview with Joe's sister, Barbara, which everybody calls Teet, Joe lived in Troutman after he left the Navy and went to work for J.C. Steel in Statesville for a while after. J.C. Steel makes different machines that are used in things like construction, farming, or manufacturing. I have no records as to how long Joe worked with J.C. Steels or what he did there. Joe and Thelma Pierce tried to have kids. Unfortunately, they had twin sons that had died after birth. They did not try to have any more kids after this event. After the deaths of their sons, Joe and Thelma started having some problems in their relationship. These problems escalated until the two decided it would be best to get a divorce rather than continue fighting amongst each other. After the divorce with Thelma, Joe searched for another partner. He eventually found another, and her name was Mage Woods. Mage and Joe had lived the rest of their lives with each other. According to Teet, Joe enjoyed golfing in his later years. My father, Chad Hill, also recalls that he enjoyed gardening and had a large garden in his backyard that he often tended to. He recalled that he had mainly grown tomatoes and yellow squash. Joe died on January 22, 2002, and is buried at St. Michael's Cemetery in Troutman, North Carolina. Joe would have seen many important events that happened during his life, such as the coronation of the now-deceased Queen Elizabeth II on June 2, 1953, the war in Vietnam, the assassination of John F. Kennedy on November 22, 1963, the landing of the man on the moon on July 20, 1969, and the terrorist attack on September 11, 2001. All of these events are events that have such immense importance to modern history, and Joe was able to witness it all. The Vietnam War was the first show of the United States' stand against terrorism and the support of the containment of communism. The assassination of John F. Kennedy was one of the earliest times, besides the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., that people really started to distrust the government because of all of the conspiracies and uncertainties surrounding the assassination. The development of the rocket that was able to get to the moon was a major win for all of humanity, but of course, all good has a dark side. The US wanted to increase its research on rockets, and they knew that they would have public support if it was to beat communists to the moon. The research of rockets would later be used to make nuclear warheads. The last important historical event that Joe would have been able to witness was the terrorist attack on 9/11. This event brought a lot of people together in mourning and support for the families that had been affected by the attack. Many people think back to all these events now and don't think that anybody could have lived and seen it all, but Joe did. I think that when people think back to these events, they don't realize how close the events are to modern days, which is why highlighting the life of a man who lived through it all is why I chose Joe. I hope you enjoyed the third and final episode of my documentary for my grad project. I hope that this will inspire others to go and look for some of their family history and just history in general to see what they can find and discover for themselves.